ever tried using ChatGPT or any AI tool for that matter to help you with your content, but only feel like the words don't sound like you? Now, AI can be useful, absolutely 100%, but if it's not used with intention and purpose, it can make your content feel and sound generic and even damage your brand in the long run. In today's episode, I'm joined by Melanie Campbell, who talks us through how business owners can train AI to enhance their voice rather than replace it. And if you're looking for help to bring this conversation to light in your own business, make sure that you check out her new course because there has never, ever been a more important time than right now to be more you in your business and your content. Welcome to the Powerful Content Podcast, your go-to source for content creation, strategy, and business inspiration. I'm your host, Mel Daniels, content strategist, coach, and speaker, empowering women across the globe to grow their business with powerful content that connects, nurtures, and converts. So if you're ready to create standout content that gets you noticed and remembered, or build an aligned audience who love you and are ready to buy from you, you're in the right place. I believe that content has the power to connect us all. It's up to you how you use it. Listen in for genuine and insightful chats with guests, as well as practical tools and strategies from me. It's so lovely to have you here. Let's dive into the show. I acknowledge the Wongal people of the Eora Nation as the traditional custodians of the country that I am recording from today. I recognise their continuing connection to the land and waters. I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all First Nation people listening today. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to episode 157 of the Powerful Content Podcast. Today, I am joined by one of the most beautiful humans who I've connected with recently, and that is Holistic Women's Business Guide and Intuitive Copywriter, Melanie Campbell. Welcome to the podcast, Melanie.
Thanks, Mel. I'm really happy to be here and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Oh my goodness, so am I. I really am, because we have had lots of conversations about this recently, and it just is just so amazing how people are using AI, what we need to know first. And I know that you're going to cover all of this today, which is rather exciting. But we connected sometime last year when I was on your podcast, and that's the Holistic Women's Business Podcast. And I'll make sure that I pop the link to that episode into the show notes, because not only was that a great conversation as well, but all of your episodes, Melanie, are just so thoughtful and uplifting and really make you think. So if you're listening to this, go and do yourself a favor and subscribe to Melanie's podcast, Holistic Women's Business, because it's absolutely amazing. Now, Melanie, you have so many amazing skills that you bring to the table when you are working with your clients, and I'm sure that we'll touch on some of these later in the episode as well. But I would love for you to start off this episode by sharing with us, what is it that you love about being a holistic women's business guide and intuitive copywriter?
Okay, the main thing, if I could sum it up in a really simple way, it's really about empowering women. Empowering women to really shine their unique light and work in flow with their energy. So it's really for heart-led women that want to make a positive impact and to be able to do that in a way that means that they don't burn through their energy. And then also to have the right words to be able to talk about what they do, words that are authentic to them. So it's not all of this jargon or salesy words. It's really speaking from the heart. And I just find that a lot of the women I work with, they don't see their own value. So that's something that I really love doing, because it's something I've always done. I can see potential. And once I see that, I'm just really driven to bring that out.
That's such a beautiful way of looking at the world and helping people as well. Now, Melanie, you mentioned a word there, authenticity, and we'll get into authenticity in terms of your voice and in your content and in your business later on in the episode. But what does that word actually mean to you? What does authenticity mean?
Yeah, so to me, it means just being yourself. It means not trying to fit into a particular box or trying to be anything that especially in business, all that noise out in the business world of telling us how we need to show up online, what kind of offers we need to create, how we should be working with clients, what words we should use, just all of that. It's really about creating your own path that
Mm.
feels good to you. And that's why I'm very much about creating a soul aligned business, because that ties back very much to just being authentically you, not trying to be anything else.
And it is so hard, isn't it, as business owners, that there is so much content out in the world. And there are, like you said, so many shoulds. My goodness
Yeah.
me, we should be showing up like this. We should be on Instagram. We should be doing reels. We should be doing them 5 times a day. We should be using AI, which is what we're going to
Yeah.
talk about today. But all of those shoulds really do end up clouding who we are as a person. So when we can
Mhm.
go back to that essence of ourselves and try and block out that noise, which I know is really, really difficult, but if we can block that out and come back to ourselves, then that's when
Mm.
our content and our business is going to absolutely flow. Now, talking about content and talking
Yeah.
about authenticity, today we're talking about how we can perhaps use AI, whether that's ChatGPT or Gemini, Claude, whatever AI system people are actually using, how we can use them in a way that sounds like us. Because, Melanie, I feel like so many people come to the AI table
Mhm.
and believe that AI have the absolute answers and the absolute solutions. And just before we hit record, we were talking about a couple of funny examples
Yeah.
where AI was telling
Yes.
us it could do something, but it actually couldn't. So I feel like a lot of us either feel like what AI gives us should be the thing that we put out into the world, or we perhaps try and use AI, but it actually doesn't sound like us. So we throw it out and we, you know, put our hands up in the air and we
Mhm.
walk away from it. So I guess my first question to you is, before we start even thinking about using AI, are there things that we should know or do first?
Yes, most definitely. So the first thing to keep in mind is that it's definitely not a replacement for you. So really just thinking of it like an assistant. And in the same way that if you had an assistant helping you in your business, you wouldn't ask the assistant to go off and create everything for you without you having any input into it or any guidance. So it's the same thing with things like ChatGPT and, any of those other writing based AI things, is that they do need a lot of guidance. They really are an assistant. And then the other thing, so I'm just going to keep this really simple because there are so many things that could go into this. The other thing before you start using it is just to be really clear on what your authentic voice and writing style is, and also the foundations of your business. So, really thinking about that soul aligned business before you even start using that, because you're going to use that to guide ChatGPT. So, that's things like what you do in your business, but it's more than what you do, it's what is the purpose behind what you do. Like, why is that important to you, but also why is that important to your ideal people? And then it's things like knowing who your ideal people are, but not in terms of demographics, in terms of what are the things that are important to them? What are their values? What kind of personal qualities do you want them to have? So it's starting with you first instead of going out there and saying, okay, who should I be working with? What do they want me to be? Instead, it's
Mm.
going, well, these are the sort of people that I want to work with, because these are the people that I find inspiring and fulfilling because our values are aligned. So it's being really clear on all of that first. And then you can use that to guide ChatGPT. And then the other thing I'll just touch on is just really understanding what its strengths and weaknesses are as well.
So you've given us three things there. And I
Yeah.
love the first thing. You've said use it as an assistant, not as a replacement. And that analogy of, if you had an assistant and you wanted it to do something, you would give it so much context
Yes.
before you actually sent that person away to do something for you. So
Yeah.
expecting AI to be able to accomplish a task or to give us suggestions without that context
Mhm.
is just like throwing things willy-nilly out into the
Yeah.
world. Like there's no actual guidance there. I love that. And the second
Yeah.
thing was being clear on your authentic voice and your foundation.
Mm.
And that includes a lot of things. And You mentioned there about knowing your ideal people
Mm,
and those people being people who inspire you and fulfill you. I think
yes.
that that is such an amazing description of your ideal client or your ideal people. I have never heard anyone describe ideal clients like that. But yeah, not only are you serving them and showing up
Mm,
and doing work for them, but you are also being inspired and fulfilled by those people as well, simply
yeah.
because you have similar values in life. I just
Yeah.
think that that's such a beautiful way of talking about ideal clients. Thank you for that, Melanie.
Yeah.
And then the last thing was understanding.
Well, that's around its strengths and weaknesses, which is a whole other thing, but it still ties into what I've been saying. So knowing which things it's good at, and also knowing that it's not going to give you the perfect output if you're not guiding it. And even then you still need to edit everything. So it's just understanding a few simple things like that as well.
Yeah, and so let's maybe just talk about some of its strengths and weaknesses as well, and maybe what you actually use AI for as well. So, can it write a social media post for us?
Okay. Well, again, I'd say yes and no. So, yes, it can if you give it the right. Well, the thing is, on the surface, yes, it can. But if you don't give it the right guidance, it's going to write something that you're just going to look at and go, oh, I can't use that. It's really, it's so cheesy, or it's really formal, and you would just never use it. But with the right guidance, if you put in the right kind of things about what you want, but also start with some of your own writing first, even if you give it a sample of some of your writing or a detailed description of what the purpose of, say, it's a social media post, like a carousel post, what the purpose behind that is, and listing out those key points, because then it knows what you want it to include, but it can also then use your own words when it's creating it. So it's still not going to be exactly your voice, but it's going to be a lot closer. And then you've got something to work that's at least more like you. I like to say helping it to sound more like you rather than sound like you.
Ah, okay. So, why the distinction?
Because it can't be an exact replacement for you. So it doesn't matter how you train it and how you guide it, it's still never going to sound exactly like you. But with the right sort of guidance, you can get it to sound more like you, so that then you get a result that you feel comfortable working with, and it's going to spark ideas and inspiration for you to then go away and edit. Or you might see that and then get a completely different idea from it altogether, just by the way that it's combined your words. That's happened for me before too.
Mm. Yeah. So, what I'm hearing then, Melanie, is that yes, AI can do things for you. However, we just need to be really, really careful and really mindful, I guess, also of what information we give it
Mm,
first in order to get the best outcome. But even that best outcome still needs to have editing, it needs to have, a fine tooth comb run over it, because I just think that so many people think that they can use AI and then generate all of this content,
mm.
like all of this amazing content, and not have to do anything to it or tweak it, just pump it out into the world.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually why I started testing it in the first place, because there were so many people talking about, oh, it can do this and do all of that for you, and you don't have to do anything. And I was thinking, sure it can. I'm gonna I don't believe this. I'm gonna find out for myself so that I can make an informed decision about this and see whether it is actually something that I could use in my business. Because I am very much about, making things simpler and efficiency in an authentic way. So that's why I started playing with it, to see exactly what it could and couldn't do.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of soul led women, heart centered women in particular,
Mm.
feel as though they have a message and they want to make an impact into the world and they want to be visible. So they feel like perhaps AI is the answer to that.
Mm.
But then that just kind of puts them into a place where they may feel a little bit despondent because the
Yeah.
content just does not sound like them at all. And then they become this generic, mainstream, version of themselves, which
Yeah.
is so misaligned with who they are as a person that doing business becomes really, really difficult.
Mm.
So you've given us some ideas on how we can help ChatGPT or
Mm.
AI to understand us. And those were giving it some examples about
Mm.
writing,
Yeah.
giving it perhaps things about our purpose or the purpose of the actual
Mm.
piece of content or whatever you're trying to achieve with AI. Is there anything else that we need to give it continually? So every time that we use it, do we need to give it all of these things, or can we just give it to it once and it will remember it forever and ever?
Well, it's supposed to remember. So there is a place in ChatGPT, and this is the free version that I'm talking about as well,
Yep.
because I
Mhm.
don't use the paid one. There's a place where you can customize it. So you can put in there things about your voice and writing style, and also tell it about your business. And then you can save that and it will remember that. But it doesn't always remember that exactly. So you can't rely on ChatGPT to remember everything that you've told it. So
Mhm.
I always like to remind it in my prompts just a little bit about my voice and how I want it to write. And I use very detailed prompt. Through all my experimenting, I've now come up with a prompt framework that I use where I can put in all of the information, and it's not not like a 1 and 2 sentence thing. It has all of the detail in there about how I want it to write, the writing style I want it to use, the structure I want it to use, the quantity, what kind of background information it needs. So, say if it was something you were creating and there was a particular one of your key messages that you wanted to get across, that's where you would put that key message. Because then when it's creating whatever it is you've asked it to do, it's then using that. And you're just going to get a much better result from that. You'll still have to edit it, but it's just going to be so much better.
And I think that that's the other thing as well. I think that a lot of people feel as though that they can just write 1 or 2 sentences in a prompt, or even perhaps copy someone else's pre-engineered prompt to give them 25,000 social media posts for the entire year kind of thing. They think that they can take those and plug them in and it's going to come out giving them exactly what they want. And then that's when they get that really weird, salesy, generic, cheesy
Yeah.
content
Yeah.
and they throw it all away. So this is really interesting. How much information you actually give it each
Mm.
time. So it's kind of like a balance between the time that it takes to actually
Mm.
get AI to generate the thing that you want it to generate and the ease in which it actually
Mm.
creates it. So I think that, yeah, people just think that they can plug things in
Yeah.
and AI will spit it out and, they can go ahead and use it. Whereas it does actually take time and, like
Yeah.
you said, an actual structure in your
Mm.
prompts to get that content out or those ideas out that then you can actually work with.
Yeah, it does. But then what I found the benefit of doing that, even though that seems like a lot of work to create this quite structured prompt,
Yeah.
is it actually makes you really go through and think about, well, what is the purpose of this thing that I'm creating? And what are the points that I'm making with this? So it helps give you that clarity before you even start. So even if you do that and then you put it into ChatGPT, even if you don't get what you were hoping to get out of it, you've still then got this document that you've created where everything is set out on it. So sometimes just getting you to do that part is enough then to go, okay, now I can see what I need to do. Now I can go off and do it, because that's what I find it's really good for. It's really good for overcoming that overwhelm and procrastination because something seems too big. So you put off doing it because you don't know
Mhm.
where to get started. So
Mhm.
I find that that's a really good starting point as well.
I love that idea. I love that idea. Sometimes I do get a little bit frustrated with ChatGPT in particular. If I ask it, what does it need to know in order to create this thing that I want to do? And it gives me a list of a whole heap of questions. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But I know that to get the best outcome, I do need to address all of those things. Now, I love the idea that you say that, you think about the purpose of what you're doing, what you're telling
Mm.
it to do. One of my key messages is that content has the power to connect us all. It's really up to you how you use it. And in
Mm.
terms of how you use it, one of those ideas is whether it's for purpose or
Mm.
whether you're adding to the noise out there. So,
Yes.
that kind of good versus evil type scenario.
Yeah.
But when we think about and come to our content with purpose, we are going to be more powerful in the end. So the more purposeful we can be, the
Yeah.
more powerful it's going to be at the end. So I love that idea, Melanie. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that. So, when someone has gone through this process and the prompting and perhaps a bit of toing and froing, and let's say, for example, they were asking for it to create a piece of content for
Mhm.
them, I know that you believe
Yeah.
that in order for it to sound more authentically like you do need to edit it
Mhm.
and perhaps tweak it. So, what kind of time should people be spending on things like that? Or should they just be putting it out into the world?
Definitely not putting it straight out into the world. It's highly unlikely that it would ever give you something that you're perfectly happy with. And that's also why it's good if you've done the work to really look at your business foundations and your purpose and your writing style, because then you can look at what it's given you through that lens to see, are these two things aligned? Because at first glance, it might seem like, oh, that's pretty good. Maybe I could use that. But then when you start to go back to, hang on, this is my voice, these are my messages. And then you look at it again, you go, actually, I wouldn't use those words. And that's when you can start to tweak it. But the other step that I haven't mentioned yet that's really important with training it, and it will also help with refining it as well, is that when you get the first thing that it gives you, so that first result, is then tweaking it within ChatGPT. So if, say, for example, you're brainstorming names for something and you've asked it to give you 10 names, what I like to then do is go through and see, are there any of these that I like that are kind of on the right track? So then I might say, I like number 1, 5, and 7. They're sort of along the right track of what I'm after, and not so much the others. Can you have another go and give me another 5? And then I might put in a bit more of a description as well about the sort of ideas that I want it to expand on. And then I'll ask it to have another go. So that does two things. So, first of all, it means that I'm getting more results that are closer to what I want, but it's also helping to train it. So everything that you put in there, it is then adding to its memory. So it means by telling it what you like and being very specific and what you don't like, it puts into its memory, oh, okay, Melanie doesn't like when I say these things. She likes this. And it does help to train it. And then over time, it will learn along the way.
I think that that is such a great tip because a lot of us do perhaps use it, like using your example, naming a course or something like that, asking for 10 ideas and getting the 10 ideas, but then going away and kind of finessing that or working on it ourselves without
Mm,
coming back to the AI system to let it know
yeah.
what we like and why we like it,
Yeah.
or what we don't like and why we don't like it as well. So that really helps, like you said, train it for future.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
I have noticed, Melanie, such a huge difference between, and I'm specifically talking about GPT here
Mm,
as well. The difference from when I first started using it, I don't know how long ago it was, 18 months ago, 12 months ago. Feels like forever in some
mm.
in some
Yeah.
respects.
Yes.
But when I first used it, the information, the ideas, the brainstorming, the content that it was giving me is so much different from today. It is absolutely phenomenal. Like
Mm,
I have gone from throwing everything that it creates out the window to
mm.
going, oh wow, yes, I could definitely use that, or that
Yeah.
is a great idea, or I haven't thought of that. And I've been telling my members inside the content effect as well that there are occasions when it tells me some of my
Mm.
thought leadership that I can add into things, which I
Yeah.
think has been really phenomenal. So that only comes, I'm assuming, from,
Yeah.
you know, having those, dare I say conversations? Seems weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Conversation
call them
with AI.
conversations.
Having those conversations with it to let it know. It's kind of like a friend. You need to let it
Yeah.
know what you like and don't like in
Yeah.
order for the relationship to flourish.
Yeah. But I do like to think of it like that. I think the more you treat it like a person, even though it's not, and you speak to it like a person, that also helps it learn as well. Because that's what I've found. The more I talk to it as though it's a person and I'm really friendly to it, it responds to me in the same way.
Mm.
Which then also, as well as getting better results, it just makes it a lot more enjoyable to use. And it also it gives you encouragement as well. I've asked it for things before and it said, "Oh, I love the direction you're going in with this. I'd love to help you to brainstorm these ideas," and with a little smiley face.
So if you're listening to this and you need a bit of motivation, go and talk to AI. Now, Melanie, at the top of the episode, we were talking about getting our foundations right and perhaps understanding purpose and what our authentic voice is. Now, amongst all of that, I know that you talk a lot about values
Mm,
and values, not only how you come to your content in terms of values, but values in terms of how you run your business as well.
mm.
Seeing values are so important to you. I would love to know how you balance your values with using ChatGPT.
Okay, so I use that to really assess how I'm going to use it and also the output that it gives me. So if I look at, say, the values of simplicity, authenticity, and connection,
Are they your values?
yeah, they're probably my main ones. But what I've found with values is that because I struggled for a long time with narrowing down my values to just 3 values, because there are lots of things that are important to me, but they all tie into that same sort of umbrella. But it means that depending on what I'm doing, then different values will become more important. I mean, authenticity and connection definitely, well, actually, no, those 3 are always important. Then there's things like integrity, but I feel like that fits into this as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at that, say from simplicity to start with, I'm looking at, well, is this going to make things simpler for me? So usually that's an easy one to answer because quite often it's yes, if it's something that I'm procrastinating over because it seems too overwhelming to get started. And then I will then create whatever that is. But then actually on that idea of simplicity though, that also ties into how simple is the next step going to be as well. So to give you an example of that one, I've been experimenting with turning the transcripts from my podcast into a blog and using ChatGPT to restructure that for me so that then I could go through and edit it. And at first I thought, okay, that'll be great because then I can have the blog page going at the same time. And that seemed simpler. But then I realized that to do that, even though it restructured it for me, I would then have to go through and edit it because the way that I would write a blog article is different to the way that I speak on a podcast. It's a different kind of format. So I realized that at the moment, I don't have the available time to do that. So that's where I went, okay, well, that's something that I can do later down the track. But at the moment, yes, it's simpler because I'm getting ChatGPT to restructure, but it's not going to make things simpler for me to actually go through the full process and get it out there because that's another thing on my plate that I just don't have time for right now.
And I just say, I love that point so much because, I talk about also not doing hashtag all the things. And I feel like there is a pressure out there to create more
Mm,
from your core piece of content, which is, blog, podcast, or video. The pressure is that you should be, there's that should again, should be
yeah.
creating more because you have this tool and because it's so quick and easy. What I'm hearing, Melanie, the
Mm,
reality is, and what I talk about as well, is it really does revolve around what available time you have,
mm.
what energy you have, the resources you have available to you. What are those time, energy, and resource constrictions that we have as well? I love that point.
Yeah, so that's just one of them. And then just quickly the authenticity value, obviously that's comes more into what it gives me. So then I'll look at it through that lens of authenticity. Is what it's given me authentic to me? And then I'll look at that compared to my business foundations and my writing style and voice. And then that's what I'll use to edit it to make sure that it is authentic to my voice and my unique message. And then the connection part ties into the authenticity part because the more authentically I'm sharing things, then the more it does create that genuine connection because that's really what it's about. It's about creating genuine connection with my ideal people. It's not just, as you said, it's not just adding to the noise and just putting things out there for the sake of it because that doesn't create connection.
I love it. So many beautiful insights there. And so, also, what I'm hearing, Melanie, is that if we understand what our values are, then we can use our values in a way to filter what we do and how we do it and
Yeah.
the output that we get from ChatGPT as well. But can I just say, I love your values of simplicity, authenticity, and connection. I know you have lots more, but I think that
Yeah.
that really sums up the kind of gist of
Mm.
what most of my listeners' values would actually be. Mine is family, connection, and
Mm.
community. And I'm sure that, if I got all of the listeners to DM us
Yeah.
today, it'd be something very, very similar. So being able to know that we can use AI and ChatGPT in a way that still reflects who we are
Mm.
intrinsically as a person, how we want to show up in the world, I think is such a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for sharing all of those insights with us today. I really, really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Now, I love to round out all of our episodes with an opportunity for reflection. So,
Mm.
what are a few questions that my listeners could maybe explore to help them lean into that authentic voice in their content, and especially when using AI?
Yeah. So the first one is definitely reflecting on what your unique voice and writing style is, because a lot of us don't take the time to actually, and I know I hadn't even done this until I started using ChatGPT to
Yeah.
actually describe what that is. And it doesn't need to be anything complicated. So just look at something that you've written that you feel like is a good example of, of you. And I like to think of it as a conversation that you would have with a like minded friend, even if it's something that's in writing. I feel like writing is what I call written speaking. So it's still a conversation. So looking at that and just seeing what your style is. For me, I say things like that it's conversational, it's supportive and empowering, but it's not cheesy or formal. And I don't use any jargon or salesy words. So it can be as simple as that. So that's a really good starting point, is just to look at what your voice might be. And if you're not sure, you can also ask someone that knows you well how they would describe your writing style.
Love that idea.
I
So
actually
that,
had someone say to me that reading my emails was like a written warm hug.
oh,
I thought, "Oh, that's so nice." And I was thinking, well, what did I put in there that was like that?
yeah, isn't that lovely? Okay, so that's the first one to reflect on. How would you
Yeah.
describe your unique voice and writing style?
Yeah. And then the next thing is to really make sure that you're really clear on those business foundations. So not just take the time to really look at not just what you do, but what's that purpose behind it? Why does that matter for you? As in, why are you doing it? Why is it fulfilling for you? And then also look at, why is that important for your ideal people? And what is it actually going to help them to do? So it's looking at that from both sides, because often a lot of the things out there are more about, what do our ideal clients want? And there's really nothing about what's in it for us as well. But the more that you're doing something that's fulfilling for you, then you bring that into your work.
I'm all about that. I
Yeah.
love that too. So,
Yeah. So I think reflecting on that is really important, because the more you understand those things and you can actually describe them in writing, it means that you can then use those things to guide ChatGPT or any AI platform that you're using. And it just means that you'll get a much better result. But it also helps you in all of your content and everywhere in your business anyway.
fantastic. So I think that that one is probably asking yourself, why does my business or why does my service or my offer matter to
Yeah.
me as well as my ideal client
Yeah.
and any
Yeah.
others?
Yeah. And then the other thing to think about that's really important is, what's your available time and energy right now? And that's a really good thing to think about before you even start getting into trying to get ChatGPT to do anything. A bit like the example I gave before about turning my podcast transcripts into the blog. So it's good to know, do I have time for this right now? So really look at what those things are. And I think that ties back really nicely to your concept of the minimum viable content as well. So if you don't have a lot of time right now, it's really looking at, well, what's my focus right now? That could be another question around that same thing. If that's a bit easier, what do I want to focus on right now? What's the most important thing? And I think reflecting on that will help you to decide what you actually want to use ChatGPT for with your content.
beautiful reflection questions there. So about, your unique voice, writing style, understanding why your business matters, and also understanding your time and energy availability. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing those, Melanie. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Now, I know I'm an insider here. I know that you
Yeah.
actually have something that can actually help people with these questions and to get them on the right track when using ChatGPT, especially making sure that you are using an authentic voice. So, what is it that you are excited for in the next couple of months, Melanie?
Yes. So I've just launched a course called ChatGPT with Authenticity, and it walks you through this whole process. So it's about finding those foundations and your voice and writing style, and then it goes through the prompt framework and having those conversations with ChatGPT. So it just goes through all of those basics that you need to be able to use it in an authentic way, and then so that you can make an informed choice about whether you want to use it or not, because it's more for women like us that authenticity is important to us. So, we've been probably not as keen to start with maybe about using AI and ChatGPT because we don't want to lose our own authentic voice. And that's actually why I created this, because I didn't even know I was going to create this when I first started using it. It's just because I've been having lots of conversations. It's probably been about a year in the making, I think. I just really felt there was a need to have something like this.
Yeah, I agree. There is definitely a
Yeah.
need to have something like this. And I will make sure that I share the link to your course in the show notes as well. So you're listening to this and you're feeling like, there's so much noise out there and you're really feeling the pressure of the shoulds, especially when it comes to using AI, then go and check out Melanie's course. I know it will be such a useful resource for you, especially if you want to show up in this world as your true self. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Melanie.
Thank you for having me.
So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Melanie, and sharing your wisdom with my listeners. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me here. I've loved having this conversation.
Thanks so much for listening. That's it for another week. To get more powerful content in your life, make sure you're following along on socials. My handle is @meldbusiness. And just in case you're wondering, the groovy music for this podcast was created by Just Here on SoundCloud. I'd also be super grateful if you took a moment to rate and review this podcast so more amazing women like you can experience the power of content. And if you're like, hell Mel, stop talking, I'm ready to work with you now, here's how we can work some powerful content magic together. Firstly, come and join the Content Effect, my membership inspiring women with service-based businesses to ditch the content chaos and start creating stand-out content that gets you noticed and makes sales. You can join us by using the link in the show notes or just Google the Content Effect. The second way we can work together is via my one-on-one packages. We can create a sustainable content strategy or start to build out your client journey. It's up to you. Hop on over to meldbusinessservices.com.au/services to find out more. Until next time, have a beautiful week and embrace the power of your content.